dropout and regularization. What are these and why are they used so do you guys have any doubt on forward propagation and backward propagation till now?
Vishwa, honestly, I have read till and made notes till starting of the neural networks. So today, tomorrow, I'll make notes and then I'll get come back.
Okay, hopefully you use the weekend to
Yeah.
like that is important.
Today I was supposed to complete it, but today I was out of home for a lot of time, so couldn't do it.
Oh,
Otherwise,
okay.
yeah.
Imran, you are clear on forward propagation and backward propagation, right?
Yeah, Biswa, I have gone through the notes.
Good. And the chain rule, how the chain rule affects the vanishing gradient and the exploding gradient problem and all, right? Yeah.
Yes, Biswa.
Okay. So from there onwards we start. So whenever we have an artificial neural network which is very deep, then we will be having many weights and many bias parameters, right? So if I have a neural network which is many layers deep, okay, so many layers, n layers deep, okay, then what will happen? At each layer there will be many neurons. At each layer there will be many neurons, right? And each neuron, what will happen? There will be weights coming in it, weights going out of it, and then bias parameter, and then activation parameter on this one, bias plus x and a, right? This is what we know forward propagation. So if we have a very deep neural network, then we will have many weights and many bias parameters. So these are weights, and inside each neuron there is a bias parameter. So learnable parameters. So if you ask someone that what is actually getting learned in the process of deep neural networks, that is our weights and bias, right? These are the two things that is getting learned, right? Uh, in the total process of back propagation, we are updating the weights and also adjusting the bias in that process, and hence these are the learnable parameters. So if our neural network is very deep, then we will have a lot of learnable parameters, okay? And when we have a huge amount of weight and bias parameters, then the artificial neural network tends to overfit the data for a particular use case. What is overfitting? Overfitting can be best explained by one example, is that suppose we have pictures of dogs and wolves, okay? Dogs and wolves, and we want to differentiate between dogs and wolves, okay? We want to build a classification network, deep neural classification network, to classify between dogs and wolves, okay? Now what happens is that we trained a model, and this model is giving 90 percentage accuracy with the training data, but with the testing data it is giving 50% accuracy. Now why will this happen? If the model was able to differentiate between a wolf and a dog with a 90% accuracy, then why will with the test data, why it is it behaving so bad? What can be the possible reasons? The possible reasons can be that mostly the pictures of wolves will be taken in forest, right? Nobody keeps a pet wolf in the house. If they do also, that will be very like in a million 1% maybe. But a pet dogs images are mostly pet dog images. Nobody takes street dog pictures, right? Or nobody find dogs in forests or wild. So dog is always found in a pet home, right? So instead of fitting on the characteristics of a wolf and a dog, the model fitted on the background of the image, right? So all the images of the wolf that had the background of wildlife, and all the pictures of dogs had the background of a residence. And that is how the model did the fit. So that's why it was 90% accurate. But in our test data, we had some pictures of wolves, say in zoo or in some other places in the roadsides. Okay, so those were wrongly classified as dogs because there was no wildlife behind them, right? The background was not wild behind them. So they were classified as wrongly classified as dogs. So this is like a very bright example of overfitting. So that means what? We are fitting on the noise instead of the actual information. So the background is the noise, right? We want our subject of interest is the wolf and the dog. Our subject of interest is not their background, right? But the model fit on the background. So the model fit on the noise. And this happens mostly when you have a very deep neural network. Okay. Why this happens? Intuitively try to think. Is because there are so many trainable parameters or learnable parameters that something or the other pattern gets trained. Something or the other pattern gets learned. If it cannot learn the pattern that we are looking for, it will learn on some pattern that is the noise, right? The noise can also have patterns, right? So suppose you are getting signals, radio signals, right? So it is very important to distinguish between a FM signal and a noise signal, right? So sometimes if our channel is 93.5, sometimes at 93.4 also we get the reception. We get the reception, right? But it is not as clear as 93.5, but we get the reception at 93.4. So a very deep model will fit in this data. It will think that this is the pattern because here it finds a pattern and it fits. If your model is not very deep and wide, then what happens? It will like it's a what do you call it? It's a gambling type of thing. Like you cannot say how much exactly the depth is needed. Okay, so but eventually while developing lot of neural networks, eventually you will get the idea that okay, too much deep is not correct, or too short is also not correct. Too short a network will fail to capture any pattern. Too deep a network will start capturing patterns from noises. So we have to hit a very sweet spot in between. That will actually capture the thing that we want, not the noise or not nothing at all. Okay. So to do that, but suppose we have to build a model which is very deep. Suppose we had to build a model which is very deep due to some XYZ reason. And we saw that it is overfitting. Overfitting means training percent accuracy is higher than testing accuracy. Then we can do dropout. What is dropout? So dropout is, imagine dropout is another. So let me, okay. So this is a neural network. So these are connected. Okay. So imagine a dropout is a layer in between. Okay. A dropout is a layer in between which disables some connections. Okay. Randomly disables some connections. And how many connections it will disable, you can give a percentage of that. Telling 25% of the total connections of the fully connected artificial neural network, disable 25% out of them. So you can do that. So it is like a sub layer. It is like a layer between a layer, which sits there like a switch, on off switch. If you make the switch off, then that connection is disconnected. If it on, then it is connected. So we can tune it. We can tune it, handle it with better accuracy, right? So we can play around with what will be the dropout percentage for like a perfect, what do you say? What is going to be the perfect dropout percentage for a best fit, not overfitting? We can do that. So I'll show you the code for that. Yeah. So if you see here, so this is a dropout layer, tensorflow.keras.layers.dropout. Okay. So it's telling 0.2% dropout. Means 20% of the layers drop out randomly, 20% of the layers. Okay, let me, this is the class. This is the Python Keras class, TensorFlow Keras class for dropout. Okay, I'll show an example. Here you see. So this is a model. Okay, you see, I asked you this homework, nobody did it. Anyways, so a sequential model, we are adding a dense layer of input dimension 60. That means the first this is 60. Okay, and connected to a input layer of 60 dimension. That means this is also 60. And that 60, then we are adding a 30. That means, sorry. This is a 60. And then we are adding a 30. And then we are adding a 1. Okay, 60, 60, 31. This is the architecture of the neural network here. Add dense 60, input 60, then 60, then 30, then 1. And you see activation in each layer. We are giving the activation. What is the activation? That means all the neurals, all the 16 neural nodes of this layer has an activation of neural loop. Okay. The last one is sigmoid because it is only one. So binary, yes or no, true or false. So sigmoid squashes the output between two things, right? True or false, yes or no, depending on whether we are crossing the 0.5 threshold or not, right? If you remember that. Now after that, we need to give the optimizer, stochastic gradient descent, SGD. SGD is stochastic gradient descent. And what is this momentum term? I will tell you later. But this is the SGD optimizer, means how do you want your model to learn, using which algorithm? Gradient descent, stochastic gradient descent, mini batch stochastic gradient descent, or what? Okay. And then loss. What is the loss function? Here it is binary cross entropy. Like we know the loss function, we know only one loss function, right? Output dash minus output whole square. We know this loss function, right? So there are many loss functions like this. Binary cross entropy is one loss function. I'll explain this. What is this loss function? Okay. So and then we are compiling the model and we are building the model. Okay. So this is how you create a model. This is how you create a model. Okay. Now this model, for some reasons, is it's not a very deep model, but for some reasons, maybe this model is overfitting. So we want to add a dropout layer. So what do? We add a dropout layer, just like that. Just like that. Between the input and between this 60 and this 60, we add a 0.2 dropout layer, 0.2 dropout layer. See here. Between the input step 60 and this 60, we add a 0.2 dropout layer, right? So that means 20% of the connections in this layer will be disconnected. And then we see again run that algorithm and you see that the accuracy increased to 83%. or 86. Then we added more dropout layers. We can add more dropout layers. We can add in the hidden layers, right? So this is, we started with the input dimension 60, connected with 60. After that, we added the dropout layer. Okay, that means we had this here, we added the dropout layer, right? So here, so you can do that way also. You see, then you keep on checking which dropout is giving how much accuracy. Okay, so this is how you add a dropout layer to your model. Okay. Okay.
Biswa, how do we determine what percentage of dropout we need to add? And there is any
It's
threshold for that?
mostly between 20 to 50%. So you have to do a hit and trial. So first 20, 30, then what he is doing here, you see, he's checking by adding a dropout, he's checking what is the accuracy, 83%. Then he's seeing 83.59. Did it increase or decrease? It increased a little bit. So that means these two dropouts increase the percentage little bit, but very less. Didn't it make much sense? Then because it's not a very deep model, right? It's a very small model. That's why it is not affecting much. But if it was a very, very deep model, then there would have been chance of a bigger dropout. Okay, a bigger accuracy difference. Now, when you see the accuracy, then you understand that you are going in the right direction or in the opposite direction. Then you will understand, okay, I have to drop out more or less. So it's mostly an architecture hit and trial method of the engineer who does it. Okay. So next is One more thing is that when you give dropout of 20%, it does not mean that uh, suppose 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So we have connections, right? So we have connections here also. We have connections here. So when you do a dropout here, it does not mean that always this one will be disabled. It means that in first forward propagation and backward propagation, randomly 20% of the signal of the connections will be disabled. In the second, this is first forward propagation, second backward propagation. In the second forward propagation, backward propagation, what will happen? Same 20% will be disconnected, but which are those 20%? We don't know. That is randomly selected. That means in every forward and backward propagation, some random 20% connections are disabled. It is not constant. It is not same. Okay. And one more thing, remember that when you are testing them, when you are testing the model, one is training, another is testing. When you're testing the model, that time the dropouts all become invalid and everything becomes a connected neural network. Okay, everything becomes a fully connected neural network, and the dropout ratio will be reduced, and there will be no dropouts. So, but testing dropout doesn't apply to testing. Okay. Okay. Now let's come to weight initialization. Okay. Weight initialization is one more important concept. Yeah, weight initialization. So weight initialization means when you are defining a model, like I showed you in a sequential model, adding layers and all this stuff you're doing, then in that model, you initialize your weights, right? Initially, there will be some weight for those models, right? Before the training happens. Now we have seen a fact, a matter of fact, that if the initialized weights are higher, there is a chance of exploding gradient problem, right? So we have to choose the weights in a very logical manner so that the learning also happens efficiently. There is no exploding gradient or vanishing gradient problem, and things move. The performance is also good. So this type of things. So if I choose a very big number, there is two problems. One is it might explode, be an exploding gradient problem. Second is that for a single matrix operation, like finding the derivative or whatever, I have to do a huge calculation because the number is big. That means the number, if I am using very small number, then it can be occupied, and then it can be expressed in a 8-bit location. But if I'm using a very big number, then it may take 4 bytes. And multiplying these 4 bytes and doing all the addition subtraction in a graphics memory card will take time, right? So weight initialization is important. Okay. So key points in weight initialization is that weight values should be small. Now you understand why it should be small, right? I already said weights values should not be same, right? all the different neurons weights should be different, right? In the beginning, when time t is equal to 0. This goes unsaid, right? This is obvious. If every neuron has the same weight, then everything will be learned as same. We don't want that, right? We want each neuron to learn something different. Neuron A should learn and one aspect, neuron B should learn another aspect, right? We don't want all the neurons to learn the same thing. Weights should have a good variance. Variance means the total, suppose there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, no, 5 neurons in here. So the minimum neuron, the minimum weight and the maximum weight distributed among these 5 neurons should be high. This variance should be high, right? That means we should have a very good quality of high quality variance in the selected weights. Means if I select weights like this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then what is the variance? 1 to 5 means 4. But if I select say 1 to 3, 40, 50, then the variance is 1 to 50, 49. So this is a high variance, right? So that means our variance should be high. As each and every neuron is learning something from the neurons, so their initial weights should have different weights. That I already told you. Okay. Technique of weight initialization. How many techniques are there of weight initialization? One is uniform. Uniform weight initialization. This is one formula. Okay. So the formula says that the weights should be between this range. 1 minus 1 by root over of fan in distribution to less than equal to 1 by root over of fan in. Okay, so this is the range of uniform distribution. Okay, so what is fan in? Fan in means any neuron, the number of connections coming to the neuron are called fan in. So here fan in is equal to 3, and the number of connections going out of the neuron is called fan out. So here fan out is equal to 2, right? So for a neuron of this type, the distribution should be between 1 minus 1 by root over of 3 to 1 by root over of 3. Got it? So it does not matter how many fan outs are there. Only what matters? The number of fan ins. Okay. So this is and this is uniformly distributed. Uniformly distributed. This one you have to understand. That means not normal distribution, uniform distribution. Uniform distribution means if you have, this is the range, right? This is the range. Then and you have 5 neurons. Then you give equally, you give the values to each of them. The gap between them should be equal, uniformly distributed. Okay. Okay.
Is it like steps or?
No, yeah, means suppose your neural network is this one. This is your neural network. So what is fan in? Fan in is 3, right? At every stage, fan in is 3. Here fan in is 3, here fan in is 3, here fan in, all are 3, right? So now I have how many neurons? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 neurons. So I have total 8 neurons to be given weight from a range of -1 by √3 to +1 by √3. So if this is the number system card, and this is -1 by √3, this is 0, this is +1 by √3, and I have 8 total neurons, then I will divide this range between 8 equal parts. Like this. Okay. So I have now uniformly distributed my range in the neurons, 8 neurons, from a range from -1 to 1 by √3 to +1 by √3. Okay. This is called uniform distribution. Another distribution is called Xavier or Gorat distribution. Xavier or Gorat distribution. Okay. So in this we have Xavier normal and Xavier uniform. Xavier or Gorat normal, Xavier or Gorat uniform. And what is the formula? The formula is, for uniform distribution, the range is -√6 by √over of fan in plus fan out to +√6 by √over of fan in plus fan out. Okay, this is Xavier uniform. That means between this range to this range, it will be equally distributed to the number of neurons that has to be given the weights. Okay, so this is the definition. What is normal distribution? Normal means like this distribution. That means we need to have a mean and we need to have a standard deviation, right? For uniform, we don't need a mean and standard deviation. I told you how uniform distribution looks like. For normal distribution, we need to have a mean and standard deviation. So for Xavier or Gorat normal, the mean should be equal to 0. And the standard deviation should be equal to whole root over of 2 by fan in plus fan out. Okay. So means in the number line system, mean should be 0, and this standard deviation, this one, should be equal to 2 by fan in plus fan out. Okay, so this is called Xavier normal distribution. This is called Xavier this is called Xavier uniform distribution, and this is called Xavier normal distribution. Okay, then one more is there. This is called HE init. HE init. These are all these questions you will ask yourself. If I remember the ranges? No, I don't remember. I don't care also. Okay, I also will ask you not to remember, because it's a waste of time. But in interview, it is important. They will ask all these nonsense questions. Okay, so you have to answer this. So before interview, just recite this and revise this and go. Okay. Similarly, HE in it has two things. One is uniform, one is normal. Okay. Uniform is between between 6 by fan in to root over 6 by fan in. This is uniform. For normal, mean is 0 and standard deviation is equal to root over of 2 by fan in. Okay. This is our normal distribution. It has been found that Xavier or Gorard distribution is good with sigmoid activation functions. When your model has sigmoid activation functions, then Xavier or Gorard distributions are better. That means the possibility of having a what do you call it, vanishing gradient or exploding gradient, those things don't happen. And it is seen that HE in it is good with ReLU and leaky ReLU activation functions. ReLU and leaky ReLU activation functions. Okay. So whenever you do your thing like define your model, then accordingly define the activation initialization, weight initializations. So if you see here, weight initializations, I can show you. There is yeah, you see every layer you can have initializers. Okay, so this is a random initializer. Okay, it's telling the mean is this much and standard deviation is this much. Random uniform, truncated normal, 0 class, 1's class. This is Glorot normal, Glorot uniform, identity orthogonal. There are many types of. I give you some. I give you two. There are many types of weight initializers. Okay, so this is how you give the kernel initializers, right? This is how you give the weight initializer. This is bias initializer, and this is weight initializer. Okay, so either you can give in this format, or you can give this format. Some built-in built-in identifiers are there, which can be also passed in as initializers, or you can define your own. Okay, so these are the available initializers. So you can check the importance of which initializer is how, and then use it accordingly. Xavier weight initialization. So he has done it from scratch without using the things. This is how the distribution will look like. Plot of Xavier weight initialization with inputs from 1 to 100. Normalized Xavier weight initialization. HE weight initialization. I told you that. So these are the types of weight initializers. Here, this is good example. Here he has shown in from scratch how we are giving it actually to the function. What I want to show you. Yeah, this one is also the same thing. You are in a model, you are adding a layer, telling 64 neurons are there. The weight initializer is random uniform, and the bias initializer is zeros. And this is the way you define the layer. Okay. Here in initializer we have zeros, ones, constant, random value, random uniform, truncated normal, variance scaling, orthogonal, identity, Lacan uniform, Clairaut normal, Clairaut uniform, He normal, Lacan uniform, He uniform. That's it. So these are the types of initializers available. Okay. So normally we use random uniform is fine. I never used other kinds of initializers. This works fine. Okay. If you don't give by default, this is the thing. If you don't give by default, this is the thing that will be taken. Okay. Okay. So I think that's it for today. Next class I will explain you global maxima, global minima, local maxima, local minima, then SGD with momentum, ADA grad, ADA delta, RMS prop. These are the different optimization techniques. So your task is to define a model. Okay, define a model, build a model of these dimensions. 60, 60, 30, 30, 20, 5. Okay, so remember this one. So this is your model architecture. You have to write the code for it, like I showed you here, right? Like I showed you. This way, you have to write the code. Okay. So these weights, these are the number of neurons in each layer. And here you have to add 0.2 dropout. Here you have to add 0.3 dropout. And here you have to add 0.1 dropout. Okay. If this layer should be He uniform. And everything else should be by default, whatever it is there. Okay. Model should be compiled by the SGD optimizer. Okay. Model should be compiled by SGD optimizer. And loss function is categorical cross entropy. Categorical cross entropy. Cross entropy. Okay. So you have to build this model and send me in WhatsApp the code for that. Okay. This is the task. Okay, guys. Any questions?
Neural networks is very complex.
No, you have the recording. See the recording. Pause the recording. Go to that website and write down that you have to just write 5 lines of code. That's it. 5 or 6 lines of code. How many layers are there? That will be lines of code. So if you don't write, then you will not be acquainted with writing models.
No, I understood. Yeah.
So do that. Send it by next class. That is tomorrow. Tomorrow is our next class. So try to send it by for that. so that we can have a discussion around that. You will definitely will have some doubts. We can clear those things. Okay, Imran,
So
fine.
for most of the things, we are using Keras, right? So that
Yes,
is
yes.
default library for.
No, there is PyTorch is there. TensorFlow directly you can use. Okay, but I prefer using Keras because Keras, accidentally I started using Keras from my first project. So I got acquainted with Keras. So PyTorch, so TensorFlow is the base. Okay, is the basic level. On top of TensorFlow, there are many what do you call it, libraries like Keras, Theano, Caffe, PyTorch. So many are there. So I don't need to remember all of them. Anyone you can use, or you can directly use TensorFlow itself. So it's up to you.
No, in the interviews and the work and all, they may ask. Like,
Yeah,
what is your
you make one specialization. Either choose Keras or Theano or Caffe or PyTorch, whichever you feel you are connected more with, you are comfortable more with. Pick up that one.
Okay.
I'll tell go with Keras. Keras is
Okay.
very straightforward and simple, and you will find it very simple to use.
Okay, so not like our .NET, right? Every time you will have Unity.
No. It is see, writing models is very less actually. The entire data science, 10% of the code is writing models. 90% of the code is actually arranging the data, messaging the data, cleaning the data, and making the data ready for consumption to the models. Finally, writing a model is, if you consider, it will be very less, maximum 40 to 50 lines of code. That's it. So that I also don't remember most of the functions. When I have to write, I refer Keras documentation and I write. So in interview, they won't ask you what is the syntax of a function or something. That they won't. If they ask, then it's a junk company. You should not do that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Biswa.